Listen up. Shit. The year is 1958. I'm 10 years old. Do the math. My mother has decided that I'm going to take piano lessons. I don't understand this because nobody in the family plays any music. There's always music in the house, and we listen to music, but other people play music. So being the curious lad that I am, I ask her why. You know, why am I going to take piano lessons? And she gives me the 4-word answer that I'm very familiar with from my childhood. Some of you are familiar with the 4-word answer? Because I said so. Right. So for the next 2 years, I take lessons with a classical teacher, and then I switch to a kind of a pop teacher. But what is it that I learn in these lessons? What I learn is there's notes on the piano that correspond to notes on a page. And that's what I learn to play. I don't learn anything about scales. I don't learn anything about chords. I don't learn anything about improvisation. I learn to play notes from the piano on the page. It gets to the point where the last 6 months of my lessons, the guy who's teaching me is this incredible pop pianist. And for the first half hour of the lesson, I'm doing my little, playing the song notes. Then my parents come out, sit on the couch, I join them, and we listen to him play for me. Reinforcing the idea that, we don't play music, we listen to music. So now I'm about 14, and there are other things that are catching my interest, other than playing the piano. So I basically give it up. 1975. I listened to a record, someone turns me on to a record by Paul Horn called Inside the Taj Mahal. This guy is playing a solo flute in this echo chamber. And he's got these sounds that trail off, and he's got these voices, these chanting, and it's compelling. And I think, wow, that sounds cool. I'd like to do that. So I buy a flute. Okay? And I kind of learned something about how to blow it, and it's like, that doesn't sound like Paul Horn. And I know the notes are in there, but somehow they're not coming out. Again, this thing, we don't play music, we listen to music. But I want to try this. And every once in a while, there's a, wow. That's cool. So I carry the flute around for the next 20 years. And not much else happens. So now we're in 1998. More of you are familiar with this year, right? And my marriage is breaking up. And my heart is breaking. And what is going to help me get through this? A few years earlier, I'd gotten in touch with spirit guides that I could call on for help. And I realized that I needed help. So I asked the spirit guides for help, what is going to help me through this? And the answer was, music, Andy. And I said, what? And they said, music, Andy. And I said, I need a little more explanation. You know, what does that mean? And they were very clear. They said, you have to play music. And I said, you don't understand. Our family listens to music. We don't play music. Music. So I took out the flute, and I decided to take a lesson, but this time motivated from inside me. I called a friend of mine I knew who was a professional musician. I said, can I come over? He said, sure. And I told him what was going on and what the message, the spiritual message, you know, my spiritual guides had told me, and being in California, he understood what that meant. And he said, well, let's hear you play. Play. So, and he looked at me, and in the kindest and gentlest way, said to me, maybe the flute is not your instrument. Well, what is? So he said, why don't you try blowing straight through? This side thing doesn't seem to be working for you. So he gave me a bamboo flute. He said, just blow straight through it and see what happens. Oh, that's different. So I was thinking you need something, just blow straight through. So I got a little bamboo flute, but then a few weeks later, I was at a Native American festival, and I heard a sound. You know, one of those sounds that's so compelling that you're just drawn, you know, where is that coming from? What is this? And I walked over to a booth, and there was a guy there with, you know, it looked like a piece of wood with holes in it. And he was playing it. And I said, what is that? And he stopped and said, it's a Native American flute. Would you like to try it? Okay, what do I do with it? He says, well, you put your middle 3 fingers of your left hand there, and then just blow straight through and see what happens. Wow, that was pretty good. What do I do with my other hand? He says, well, you put the other 3 fingers down and start there and just bring up 1 finger at a time. I bought it. The first of many. And I started to play it. I started like practicing with it and experimenting with it and exploring with it. Something coming through me that was coming out of this flute that felt like nothing I'd ever felt before. And I wept because I realized that I was making music. I was making my music. And I wept with grief at the 40 years that had passed. That I had been believing this voice that said, we don't make music, we just listen to music. Because I realized that was a lie. And I just kept playing. Led me to try another instrument. picked up a clarinet. A lot more complicated. And at one point, a few years later, I was in an airport with my clarinet case. And someone said to me, "Oh, are you a musician?" I paused, took a really deep breath, and said, "Yes, I'm a musician." And then she said, "What's your name?" And I said, "I'm MusicAndy."
Oh.